This show is brought to you in part by viewers like you who joined a Patreon or become YouTube members. Thank you. And if you could, hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. As OTAs continue on, I want to make sure we get a good look at what's going on around the league, especially in the AFC North. And in order to get a good look at Pittsburgh and a view of Pittsburgh from somebody who is actively paying attention every day to what the Steelers are doing, Jarrett Bailey is in the building from AFC North Talk. You have a lot of other stuff that you jump on. Just let people know where you write and where you put your stuff at.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to just keep up with me, just follow me on Twitter at JBaileyNFL, but bylines at the Sporting News, USA Today Sports Media Group, and then I am the managing editor for Behind the Steel Curtain, which is SB Nation's coverage of the Steelers. So a lot of different stuff going on. You can listen to my podcast, The Pump Fake, or if you want more of just the Steelers side of it, I host Believe in Steelers for the Believe Network. So a lot of different hats that I wear, but and especially around this time of year, we were talking before the show started, just like, man, you gotta these next couple months, there's going to be some dead periods, but we're getting closer. There's technically a football game next month, so we're almost there.
You got to love football to talk about it this time.
Yes.
For sure. But there's a lot of interesting storyline threads going on with Pittsburgh, right? Obviously, the biggest one is the Aaron Rodgers situation. There's also other storylines going on with Pittsburgh. For you, somebody who covers Pittsburgh, I doubt the Rodgers storyline is probably the most interesting thing going on with them. Like, what do you find to be the most fascinating thing going on with Pittsburgh right now?
I don't know, man. They're not a fascinating team. I gotta tell you, this is a boring team. That like my expectations aren't very high. I'm gonna allow myself to buy into Aaron Rodgers maybe having like a Brett Favre first year with the Vikings type of year where he just has an incredible year and they go to the title game and they came up short and whatnot. But I'll allow myself to potentially believe in that. Outside of that, man, like there's not, like I said, not a whole lot. They traded George Pickens, which as soon as they traded for DK, I said, okay, they're going to trade Pickens. And so many Steelers fans are like, no, why would they do that? I'm like, well, because he's a constant pain in the ass and they're tired of dealing with him. And lo and behold, they did. TJ Watt's contract right now, maybe they're going to pay him. Like, I think that's a foregone conclusion. What the exact money will look like, I don't know. But they're going to pay him. I don't think they should. Love TJ. He's going to walk into the Hall of Fame. He's an absolute Ring of Honor member whenever his career's done. But for the Steelers, it doesn't make sense for them to give him $40 million a year. If they were a contending team, absolutely, yeah, it makes perfect sense. But for a team like Pittsburgh, who's just been stuck in this state of mediocrity for the better part of a half decade, it doesn't make sense to me for them to pay him. If you're a team like Green Bay or Buffalo, who's constantly knocking on the door and needs that like one final piece to maybe get you over the hump, absolutely, you would give TJ Watt that money. But the Steelers aren't that. They're probably not going to be back to contending for Super Bowls for, the foreseeable future, because next year they're more likely going to draft a guy. Pretty rare you see a rookie, contending for Super Bowls. So at the earliest, 2027, maybe, if that rookie ends up being good next year. So I wouldn't pay TJ. And if the reason that you're paying a guy is because you don't want him to play somewhere else and the fans like him, I don't think that's exactly the smartest way to do business, even, for a guy like for Watt, who, like I said, it's going to be surefire Hall of Famer, on his best day is, this at worst, the second best edge rusher in the NFL. But that hasn't gotten them anywhere. And I wouldn't pay him, but I do think that they're going to pay him. And I think that right now, that's kind of the biggest thing that people are paying attention to outside of the Rodgers stuff.
Yeah, I would ask this question about Pittsburgh. This offseason, what do you think they feel like they have legitimately improved on, or what do you think Omar Khan feels like he has made better on this team this offseason? Like, what do you think they say to themselves, hey, this is our goal going in, this is what we did, we're pretty happy with it?
I think the secondary got better. Dante Jackson fell apart last year. I know he had a lot of interceptions, but outside of that, he was pretty inconsistent, especially in that final stretch where they just couldn't win. Cam Sutton was not good at nickel. So they did a lot of different things. They signed Darius Slay, who's going to be the second starter opposite of Joey Porter Jr. They bring in Brandon Eccles as well from the Jets. They drafted Dante Kent from Central Michigan, which we'll see. I think he's more or less there to contend for a return specialist spot on the roster. But I think Brandon Eccles, we'll see what they decide to do. Especially when training camp starts, like where they want to try him out at, if he's just going to be like a depth boundary guy or if he's going to have a real chance to play at nickel. Him and Beanie Bishop will probably contend for that spot. I do think they got better in the secondary though. They also brought in former Brown Juan Thornhill to be a depth safety. They signed Sebastian Castro, the undrafted free agent out of Iowa, who I really liked going into the draft at safety as well. So I think secondary wise, they did get better. Defensive line wise, I think they got better too. Obviously drafting Derek Harmon helps that a lot. Signed a few different depth guys as well to replace Larry Ogunjobi. So I think defensively, like we know what they are, right? Especially in like the first 10 to 12 weeks of the year, they're going to be a pretty solid defense. What's it going to look like in December though, where they consistently just fall off a cliff on both sides of the ball, really, where they just can't win. You can set your watch every year to like a post-Thanksgiving drought that the Steelers go through. They need to avoid that, and that's going to be another fascinating thing to watch for them this year. But defensively, I do think that they got better with a unit that was already, like I said, pretty good throughout the first like 12 weeks of the year. It's just a matter of can they put together a full season of being pretty good.
What is up with that? With that post-Thanksgiving drought? Because like you're not an old enough team to where I'm like, oh, well, they're just old, right? And the season's weighing on them. Like, yeah, Cam is an important part. He's older, but that made more sense in like 2020 when Ben was your quarterback and it was obviously at the end. And it's like, okay, well, that's the thing about old quarterbacks. And we'll talk about old quarterbacks in a minute with Aaron Rodgers, how is he the same age as Ben?
He's a year younger than Ben because he was drafted in 2005. Ben was drafted in 2004.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Because Ben's been retired for so long now, it feels like.
Yeah.
But like that's the thing with old quarterbacks. I always say it's like, hey, yeah, they're going to be able to give you like 2 or 3 games where they look like their old selves if you play them enough. It's just like the sample over 17 is probably not going to be like amazing because they're not going to, like, that's age. You're not going to be able to produce that consistency anymore. So that made sense when it happened to y'all like in 2020. I don't know why it's happening. Well, I mean, the quarterback position has been old, I guess, with Pittsburgh, even after Ben, because it was Kenny Pickett, who's not good. Right. And then he's in Cleveland now. And then there's Russell Wilson, who was old. Mm. So is this something to do with old, or is this just something else where the Steelers get to that finish line and just remember they're not supposed to win 12 games?
It's not even like a recent thing either. Like this is a consistent thing that they've done. In 2018, they were 7-2-1 and missed the playoffs. The 2020 year, obviously they start off 11-0 and then lose 4 of their final 5 games, including the playoffs where they lost to Cleveland. So like this isn't a new thing by any stretch of the imagination where they just fall apart late November, early December, and it just carries on. And eventually, man, like once is a coincidence, twice is a tragedy, more than twice is that's a pattern, and that falls on the head coach. And I think I've just lost like my last semblance of like Mike Tomlin belief. Like at this point, it's just who he is. He wants to play and try to win like it's 2008, and against like the mediocre to bad teams in the regular season, that works. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to, trying to beat the great teams in the NFL, they aren't built to do that. I saw somebody on Twitter pose the question. I think it was a really good one. When is the last time the Steelers beat a great team outside of the division? Like Baltimore, they usually do, but like AFC North and any division, like you usually see that, at least once a year. Outside of the AFC North, when is the last time they beat a great team? And I think it was in 2018 when they beat the Patriots, and it ended up meaning nothing because they missed the playoffs. Outside of that, I can't remember the last time they beat like a legitimately really good team and like with a statement win. So even in 2020, like they started off 11-0, they didn't really beat anybody great there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, yeah, because like their big wins are usually Baltimore. I think last year, the win that moved the needle during the season was the Chargers one, but that ended up not really meaning much at the end of the year because the Chargers.
I mean, if you want to say Washington last year, you could talk me into that because they made it to the NFC Championship game. But even so, like,
I don't know if I would call Washington.
That's what I'm saying. Like, nobody really thought Washington was going to be in the NFC Championship game. And even when they got to the NFC Championship game, who the hell was picking them to beat Philadelphia? So
and they got smacked. Yeah.
Yeah. And even like in the division round, nobody except who I think John Wall picked Washington to beat Detroit. So like,
yeah,
even then, like they were a good team, but I wouldn't say they were, a great team of the likes of, with Brady's Patriots or the Chiefs or Buffalo or anything like any teams of that stature. Like they just haven't had that win in a really long time. And it's frustrating.
If we're talking about non-division perennial contenders, right? That's what we mean when we say a great team, right? So for those who are going to be upset, we didn't include the Commanders into that, right? It was like one season of success. We're not talking about a team that's had a season of success. We're talking about like Buffalo in the middle of their run, right? Like where they've been going to either conference championship or second round playoff exits. Or just they did conference championship or losing to the Chiefs.
Yeah, they did beat Buffalo week 1 of 2021. So I guess that would kind of count.
It's kind of at the beginning, though.
But we can throw in another caveat there. Like week 12, you have a huge game. They're going to face Buffalo at home week 14. They're not going to win that. Like, come on now.
And I think that brings up a larger conversation about Mike Tomlin, right? Because like I wonder how much of what people say about Mike Tomlin, even if we because I've made the point that like a lot of the stuff people say about Mike Tomlin and why he's great are stats that existed because he had Ben Roethlisberger for so fucking long. Right? Like we don't lose against rookie quarterbacks. I'm like, well, Ben goes and that one just gets out the window, right? Like now you're losing to rookie quarterbacks and wonder why, right? But how much of the recent stuff that Mike Tomlin's getting praised about happens if you have a worse kicker than Chris Boswell playing for Pittsburgh? Like, the real question. Like, I pose this one, and I don't think anybody's really thought about it. But I'm like, how much about this whole, like, we don't go over 500 thing? It's like, hey, the roster's never terrible, and you have, like, the best kicker in the NFL, and that makes up for a lot of the margins, cleans up a lot of margins across the edge.
I mean, there was 2 games last year where he was the only points they had on the board. In week 1, he had 6 field goals, and I think 3 of them were over 50 yards. And then against Baltimore in the first game that they played in Pittsburgh, they won 18-16 as well, where their only points were Boswell field goals. So that's a fair question, one that I hadn't posed to myself before, but it's legitimately fair, I guess.
Yeah, because I was thinking about the Mike Tomlin stuff, and the way I think about it is like, one, I think we overrate the impact of coaches in general, right? Because I don't think a coach is going to make a bad team good, right? If you put Andy Reid on the Arizona Cardinals right now, they're probably going to suck still, right? They might be a more fun version of terrible, but I don't think you're going to coach your way to 3-4 more wins because you got the most genius coach in the world, right? I think Kyle Shanahan's probably the most demonstratively good coach in football. And even when his team suck, he sucks, right? Like it's not like the records are like amazing for him across the board. There's some years where he just wins like 6 games. It is what it is because he just couldn't get anything out the roster. And I'm like, if Mike Tomlin had to coach like Carolina, do we really think he's about to go 500?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And look, I think he would probably account for, maybe an additional win or 2, but I don't think that the Panthers would all of a sudden become the talk of the NFC South.
But does Mike Tomlin's strategy on winning work when you don't have this? Like he's been for so long the second best kicker of his era, right? Like he's not Justin Tucker for numbers of reasons, right? So we don't really talk about him as much, but a lot of like what Mike Tomlin does, the punting in situations where you would never punt, right? The lack of aggression where most coaches would show some aggression.
He had a punt last year in Philadelphia. There was like 10 and a half, 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They're down a couple possessions. they're on the opposite side of the field, and he punts, and the Steelers didn't touch the ball the rest of the game because the Eagles just ran the ball and didn't let him touch it.
He
And
punted.
that's Mike Tomlin for you at this
Yeah,
point.
I remember he punted and like the Steelers were making a run. They were only down like 17 in the third, and they just punted the ball to Cleveland, and we got a touchdown off a Nick Chubb screen. I was like, wow, they just gave us a game. Like they were making a run. They were going to do the thing, right?
For a guy who, constantly says the dumbass take of we don't live in our fears, he lives in his fears more than any coach in the NFL. Absolutely.
It is like, it's kind of like with Riverboat Ron, where he's like the nickname becomes ironic, and it's like, is he really gambling? Like he's not gambling, but people just assume that he is. And I'm so much about like what Mike Tomlin does. I'm like, does that work? If he doesn't have these things around him, like do we applaud them, or is this shit to get you fired when you're just on a mediocre team and your kicker misses a field goal and now you win 7 games instead of like 8?
No, I completely agree. And one of my friends who covers the 49ers sent me a text recently, and I think he was just trying to make a point. He's like, is Kyle Shanahan a better head coach than Mike Tomlin? And I said, I would drive Mike Tomlin to Santa Clara myself if it meant getting Kyle Shanahan in return. Like, it's not close right now. And I think that he's kind of getting the Gruden treatment that Gruden had for a little bit, where everybody's talking about, oh, but he's won a Super Bowl. Like, yeah, bro, that was 20 years ago. Like, we got to let it go at some point. And, right now he's gone 8+ years without a playoff win. And the only coaches to ever do that in NFL history and keep their job are Marvin Lewis and Don Shula. Had a stretch at one point where he didn't win a playoff game for 8 years, but Don Shula had a much larger proven track record, I would say, at that point than Mike Tomlin did. So great. You're a Marvin Lewis now with better PR. Congratulations. That's what the Steelers are right now. And it's just so annoying that every time I turn on, some sort of podcast, like at the national level, or people who aren't Steelers fans, like from the outside looking in, like, I'm not trying to throw shade here or anything like that, but like Rich Eisen, love Rich Eisen, he's the best of us. If I have to hear Rich Eisen talk about how great Mike Tomlin is one more time, I'm going to throw a brick through my TV, because it's so overstated. He's become so overrated, and it is very frustrating as a fan with everybody else from the outside. Oh man, Mike Tomlin, great job. I'm like, all right, dude, whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of like, what really separates him other than it's kind of like Mike McCarthy, where it's like, if you look at the resumes,
violently similar resumes, and we treat Mike McCarthy like he's a member of Nickelback. Yeah. Hey, what the hell did Nickelback ever do to anybody?
Oh, no Nickelback defender over here, Jarrett Bailey.
I love Nickelback.
They got some jams. Like if you grew up watching wrestling in like 2004,
oh yeah,
you probably got some Nickelback, some Shinedown, and
Nickelback
some Creed
rules
in there. They were big on the Creed.
I mean, I'll push back on the Creed. I think Creed largely sucks, but
no, Creed sneaks. But they got like a couple of ones that go like really good with Shawn Michaels like clips.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
Seeing Shawn Michaels do a moonsault to hire is pretty good.
If Mike Tomlin was a band, I think he would be Coldplay. Like the most insufferable douche will tell you how great Coldplay is, and you're like, no, bro, I have ears, and it's not good. It's not good. And like maybe they had a few good songs back in the day, and you're like, okay, yeah, Coldplay was good then. Recently, it's not good.
Yeah, listen, I'm not a big Coldplay aficionado. Maybe to me, it's like Eminem. I don't know if I'm going to.
Yeah, you're not an Eminem guy. I know that.
Yeah, because I'm like, I haven't heard anything recently from Eminem where I'm like, oh man, he's back. Like, it's like everything I love about Eminem happened like probably when I was in high school or earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Probably elementary school, to be honest.
Didn't he? One of his like newer-ish songs was in like the last Madden, which sucks, by the way. Not the song itself. Like I don't have a problem with the song. I'm just shitting on Madden real quick, because Madden largely sucks.
Yeah, it was in Madden. It was
Abracadabra.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name of it, but I know it says that in it.
Yeah. So maybe that's my hot take, is Mike Tomlin is kind of like Eminem, where everybody will not stop talking to you about how great Eminem is.
I think that's like a better analogy than the one I had.
Yeah, but then you actually listen to Eminem with what he's doing recently. You're like, man, this is not this is not the greatest I've ever heard. You know, and then dare you say it. Dare you say it? Oh boy, if you're gonna jump down your throat and look, I will get comments about this section of this video for the next 7 months, Jarrett. Because I said Eminem. Yeah, because I compared Eminem to Mike Tomlin in an unfavorable way. You know the amount of people I just pissed off?
He's like, I don't want to say like a Chick-fil-A sandwich, because Chick-fil-A sandwiches are actually like really good.
I was about to say, we won't take that slander.
Yeah, but I used to like crap on Chick-fil-A, not because their food was bad. No, I didn't even crap on Chick-fil-A. I crapped on people who were like so insane about Chick-fil-A. Like it just when it was at its peak. I don't think it's at its peak right now.
Nah, there were people who were basically evangelical about Chick-fil-A back in the day.
Waiting in like a 40-minute drive-through line for like a good chicken sandwich. Don't get me wrong, but like I'm not sitting there waiting for that, you know?
Nah, yeah, I'm glad it's not crazy like that anymore. But
the Popeyes chicken sandwich, on the other hand,
look, it's you catch it on a good day.
Yeah, it depends on the Popeyes that you go to. If you're watching in Pittsburgh right now, I mean, you know not to go to the one on the south side. That place is a shithole. But there are very good Popeyes in the area that you can get a great chicken sandwich.
Yeah, and we'll steer this conversation back to football. But last thing I'll say about that is, have you ever had a Popeyes in New Orleans?
I've never been to New Orleans, so
if you ever go to New Orleans, you got to put going to a Popeyes on your list, because the Popeyes is better in New Orleans. I can imagine. I've heard this from multiple people who went to school in New Orleans, and then I had Popeyes in New Orleans. I was like, it is better.
Well, I mean, it's their whole thing is like Cajun style chicken, right? And I mean, that's the home of Cajun, so that makes sense.
But you would expect most of the time, whenever you get to one of these fast food places, that you get to where they're sourced.
Do you think KFC is better in Kentucky?
No, right? Like, I doubt it is. I pretty much anywhere. Like you go to Taco Bell. Like when I lived in California, there's no Taco Bell market for. There's no market for Taco Bell
because they got a bunch of street tacos and taco trucks and everything.
That's what I'm saying. For people to be like, nah, you got to try the Popeyes when you in New Orleans.
That's funny.
Like it's got to be good. But in all seriousness, back to a football-based conversation. Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers, man.
Sure.
Let's talk about this whole going on with him, which is. I'm of two minds of this. I could care less about when he signs. I think we're not asking enough questions about a guy who's going to be 42 years old by the end of the season, playing quarterback, and how much of a fall off there could be to what he was even last year. What are your concerns with what the quality of play Aaron Rodgers could bring to the table? Like, are you concerned that you're going to get like we thought Matt Ryan was good year, and then Matt Ryan just like falls off a cliff, or the Phillip Rivers year, and basically any famous quarterback from our childhood that played for the Colts? Like, do you feel like this could be that? Because like third team for a guy like that usually isn't a good thing. Yeah,
usually not. Now, like I said, I'll allow myself to be talked into a possibility of him like having a Favre with the Vikings type of year where, Brett got hurt with the Jets in 2008. I think he threw 20 picks that year, and they kind of collapsed down the stretch where they were like 6-3, and then they finished 9-7 and missed the playoffs. But then first year Minnesota goes 33 touchdowns, 7 picks. They get to the NFC title game, and then he throws the most egregious interception in the history of the playoffs. But that, Brett Favre's going to Brett Favre. I'll allow myself to believe that it's possible. I'm not going to expect it necessarily, but I'll be hopeful and optimistic that some of that old Aaron Rodgers is still in there, and we can get it more often than some people might think that we'll be able to get it. Down the stretch last year, like the last 6 games, he played pretty well. The Jets, obviously stunk, but I think his play as a whole was largely fine. 28 touchdown passes, which, this is very much an apples to oranges comparison, but Josh Allen also had 28 touchdown passes. Josh Allen also had like 15 rushing touchdowns. So, again, apples to oranges. I get it. But, in a vacuum, like he didn't play like god awful. If we're ranking, quarterbacks 1 to 32, I would still probably put him in that 15 to 18 range. So I think at minimum, he's going to be what like Russell Wilson was as a whole last year, which was flashes at the beginning and then just god awful at the end. I think if you can just get somewhere in the middle of that consistently, let's say Rodgers goes for, 24 touchdowns, 8 picks, and the defense plays well, I think that's a team that'll win probably 10 games again, maybe sneak in an 11th somehow. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just too optimistic and I'm not worried about him completely falling off a cliff. And in large part because like the Steelers usually find a way, regardless of who's there, to elevate quarterback play at least a little bit. Like they're not a very good team or system when it comes to developing quarterbacks. But like when Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges were starting games, they, elevated them a little bit to be able to win 8 games that year. When Mason came in 2023, he played great. So I think the guys that they have, like if Rodgers does like fall off of just absolutely implodes, I think Rudolph can come in and at least keep them competitive where they're not going to be like a 6-win team. So I think just the history of the franchise keeps me from believing or being worried, I guess, about them completely imploding. So if it happens, it happens. And, I'll be very surprised. I just don't think it's going to.
Yeah, my big concern with Rodgers is, one, he hasn't made a football team better in a long time, even while putting up decent stats. And I think he hasn't even been over 500. Like if he goes 500, this will be the first time since like 2022 that he's gone over 500 as quarterback in a full season. Now, granted, he's only
I think it would be 21 because they made it to the playoffs in 21, and then 22 they go 8-9.
Yes.
Right. So I think it would be. That's a good point.
So like I wonder if he's at the point where it's like, the numbers look fine, but the numbers aren't really telling the full story with him.
That's fair.
Because I there's something like, I don't know why the Jets lose 2 more games with you at quarterback, right, than they had with Zach Wilson when, both years are 4th place schedules, same division, right? Like, there's something up there. Maybe it has to do with some of the chaos that people constantly talk about that Aaron Rodgers can bring with the media. Maybe that's New York for you, right? Like I've always thought that him in New York was an awful fit. I'm
actually going to pull up their results from last year because there were definitely a few games that they should have won that they didn't. And I think a lot of that could fall back on maybe Robert Saleh as a head coach, which, he's back in San Francisco now. And I think him being DC,
he got fired pretty early.
He did
season,
get,
right?
I think it was like week 5 after the Monday night loss to Buffalo, or was it prior to that?
Yeah. They had a lot going on in New York last year.
Yeah, there was a lot. Yeah.
But like a lot of that was Aaron, right?
Sure. So here's what happened. So they lose Monday night against San Francisco, 32-19. They had, I think, their first drive of the year. Rodgers leads them down. They get points, and it's like, okay, if the Jets look like this all year, they could be a fun competitive team. And then things don't really.
The Jets were going to be good after that game.
And then Tyrod's playing the majority of the 4th quarter because they were out of it. You see Aaron standing on the sideline, like he looked fine. He was like cordial, smiling. He's like, all right, one game where we showed something at least. We're not going to win this, but things are okay. They win their next 2 games. They beat the Titans and the Patriots. They scored 24 points in each of those games. They're 2-1. And then they lose their next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then at that point, things had just fallen off. The Denver game is the next game that they lose.
Was that Thursday night? There was a Thursday night game.
It was a Sunday game. It was just pouring rain and horrible conditions. And their field goal kicker missed a kick that would have won the game. So, 10-9, not good conditions. Offense didn't play well, obviously, but still in position to win. And they don't. So, right there, that's potential additional win. They lose to Minnesota in London, where they were in position to win at the end of the game, and Rodgers throws the pick to Stephon Gilmore. So, you can probably put a little bit of that on him. Andrew Van Ginkel had a pick 6 in that game too. But 1-score games, they lose to Buffalo by 1 score on Monday night. So, like, if some of these 1-score games, a 1-score loss to the Patriots, a 1-score loss to or they beat the Texans, 21-13. A 1-score loss to the Colts, a 1-score loss to the Seahawks, a 1-score loss to the Jaguars. So, like, even if that evens out just a little bit, I think that we're looking at, a team that wins 8 games, which by the league norm is usually what happens. So I don't think that, like I said, he wasn't as bad as the Jets record shows. So I try to take that into account a little bit. But it's the Jets and it's Aaron Rodgers, and we're always going to spotlight all the the negative when it comes to that. But I'm like I said, I'm going to be hopeful. I'm going to do my best to be as hopeful as possible when it comes to when he shows up and what it looks like come come the regular season.
Yeah, age comes for everybody.
Sure.
And 42 is about that time, right?
Yeah.
That age comes. But do you think there's any chance that like he doesn't sign with Pittsburgh before training camp? Like, do you think that
I'd like to say
a
no.
world where like he actually just says, I'm gonna peace out this year?
I was on Pittsburgh radio the other night and I was asked that question, and I've done so much of like, okay, I think it'll be around this time, and I've done it like 3 times this offseason, and obviously it hasn't happened. So I've just kind of taken a break from trying to figure out when he's going to show up. Mandatory minicamp is coming up. If he's not there by then, I'll have a little bit of concern. Even if he doesn't show up then, I would still say it's like a 70-30 chance that he shows up compared to if he doesn't. If he's not there by training camp, then yeah, that this isn't happening. You can't not be there for that and just show up August 1st and be like, all right, let's do this. Like, no, bro. Like,
at 41 in a new offense.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
new
So
teammates.
I would really hope that in the next 10 days he's there so we can stop talking about it, stop speculating about it, and just go forward knowing he's the quarterback and going from there. The whole quarterback thing as a whole has been really annoying too, because it's pretty evident that Art and a lot of the people in the locker room wanted Justin Fields, and they couldn't get the job done. They were, reportedly some people in the locker room weren't happy that they benched Fields to begin with last year. So everything over the last like calendar year has just been so chaotic when it comes to that position. And I would just like some semblance of, we know who the quarterback's going to be. This is what it's going to be. Stop speculating about it.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun watching the Browns and Steelers face off. Joe Flacco versus Aaron Rodgers.
You think? Do you think that? Who do you think they move on from? They're not taking 4 quarterbacks into camp. Do you think it'll be Pickett that they move?
I think they want to trade Pickett. That's who I think the Browns want to move. You can always, one of the things with Andrew Berry in this front office is that they aren't gonna leak out stuff unless it's convenient for them.
Right.
And the fact that there was all this, Kenny Pickett
taking starting reps.
Like, look, I fell for this when you said Shohei Ohtani and Travis Hunter, and I was convinced you were going to take Travis Hunter too. Then that was my bad. But whenever they're trying to sell us something like that, it's like it benefits both the Browns and Kenny Pickett for Kenny Pickett to be traded here, because he's not going to get an extension here. Like, if we walk through it and he has like a Sam Darnold type year, which, let's be real, he's probably not. Like,
right.
He's not the prospect Sam Darnold was coming out. Like, there was questions about if he should have been a first-round pick. When Pittsburgh took him, I thought he was a third-round pick in that draft, which was not a good draft for quarterbacks, right? So I don't have high hopes, but maybe that's leaking into it. But it's just like, what's the future here for Kenny? What if he balls out here? He's not going to stay here. We're not going to sign him to a 35, put the franchise tag on him for $40 million while we have the last year of Deshaun Watson to get off the books. We would much prefer if Dylan Gabriel or Shador Sanders can hold it down and be a bridge quarterback for whoever you take next year, or whatever the plan might be going forward, or maybe they might be the plan going forward, right? Because they're on rookie deals for the next 4 years, in cheap rookie contracts too. We're talking about 3rd round, 5th round rookie deals. So like,
nothing.
And so you're the Browns and you're just looking for like average quarterback play. You're just like, hey, let's see if one of these guys has it, right? And instead of the guy who's on the last year of his 1st round deal, who's gonna be expensive if you have to bring him back in any capacity. I mean, like, we're talking best case scenario. If you think he could start 20 million, 25 for Kenny Pickett, who wants to do that?
Nobody. Absolutely nobody wants to do that. I'm trying to figure out where they would trade him though, in terms of like maybe Indy. Just make that quarterback room even more chaotic. Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones, and Kenny Pickett. That'd be kind of fun.
They paid so much money for Daniel Jones.
$14 million, man.
I find it hard to imagine they were like, let's just bring Kenny Pickett in,
right?
For competition. And it seems like they want some kind of run element to that quarterback room, right? Which is why you would bring in Daniel Jones. I'd
say no to Miami because they brought in Zach Wilson. I'm just like going division by division in my head.
With New Orleans?
Oh God. This is just add a 4th. They would have the Beatles of shit quarterbacks. Jake Haener, Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shuck, and Kenny Pickett. Yeah, line them up. Abbey Road. Let's do it.
They're kind of like Cleveland, where it's like, yeah, they got 4, but they got none. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
all of them
it's
stink.
like, honestly, I think Cleveland, I would rather be taking a chance on Shedeur Sanders than any of those quarterbacks.
Oh,
in that
absolutely.
Room.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's like, and not to say that I think Shedeur is going to automatically walk in and like be a starter or something. Like, he's still a rookie, but it's like, I mean, I think he's a better prospect than Spencer Rattler, than Jake Haener, certainly than Tyler Shuck, which, again, we do not talk about enough, that a team spent the 40th overall pick on a quarterback who had one decent year out of 7 in college football. Cam McCormick made all those headlines for being 30 in college, and he played one less season than Tyler Shuck did.
Pretty crazy. I think that if Pickett does get traded, it's just going to be similar to like a Joe Milton type of thing, where he's going to go be a backup for, you know, a potentially good team. Who the hell's the Cardinals backup right now? Maybe Arizona. Yeah, he could be like their Colt McCoy.
Maybe Kansas City. How much do they pay for Gardner Minshew?
That's a good question.
Is that a move offable contract? Because I feel like if they can move off that one, they will.
Let's see. Gardner Minshew's contract right now in Kansas City. Oh, league minimum 1 year, 1.17.
Okay, so that's a move offable one. And I think he might throw enough interceptions in camp where Andy Reid's like, you know what? Let me get somebody super safe.
Yeah, let me get just the ultimate check down guy where I know I can at least just tell him, all right, throw it there on this play and just don't take a sack.
Which, to be fair, look, Kenny Pickett is not a prototypical starter.
No.
But what he is a prototypical high-tier backup, right?
Like, backup.
He got Case Keenum written all over him, where it's like, oh, yeah, he's going to take care of the football. He's going to play low-risk, high-management style. He's going to hand the ball off. I don't know how good he is at the line of scrimmage, right? I think that matters. That's not something you can really judge. Like, hey, is he really good at checking in and out of these run fits? You know, but if he's good at that, then you can see where it seems like, well, you can start Kenny for 2 games and just hope everything else just makes up for it and maybe win.
I wonder if hold on, let me see I wonder if he would be the next guy to be like, all right, if you're going to trade me, send me to Minnesota so I can be with Kevin O'Connell for a year. Like, I know I'm going to back up JJ McCarthy. That's fine. But send me somewhere where I can at least improve while I'm there and not playing. Because who's their backup right now behind? Because they sent Sam Howell back to Seattle. So I no idea who their backup is right now.
I think Kevin O'Connell prefers quarterbacks who have a bit more of a high ceiling than Kenny Pickett.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that. No, sorry. Seattle traded Sam Howell to Minnesota, so Sam Howell's there. So maybe not that.
Yeah, like I think he would. I think he likes the quarterbacks who are a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah,
and he can feel like he can push them back a little bit from that aggressiveness,
rather than the quarterbacks who aren't aggressive and he has to try to make them more aggressive.
Because you can't make somebody throw a backside dick if they don't want to do it.
Right.
And I think I wonder, that's my big concern with Kevin Stefanski. It's like, hey, does he realize that? Because sometimes he goes after these guys who are ultra conservative and then he acts shocked when they don't want to throw the dig in the middle of the field. And it's like, you're not going to be able to throw that shit if you're scared.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a scared throw to make. Because if you point it out on film, it's like, hey, you got to throw it right here. It doesn't look great, but you got to let it go. Like, and that's just kind of what it is. And Kenny ain't going to throw that dig.
I feel like the Chargers could make some sense there.
Chargers, like anybody who has a defensive head coach who doesn't mind being scared, right? Like,
yeah, maybe that's why Mike Tomlin liked him so much coming out of college. Huh? It's starting to make more sense.
He comes back, takes another bite of the apple, right?
Let's not
division prices for him at this point. What, 4th round pick? Right? Like,
if Omar Khan's on a 4th round pick for Kenny Pickett, they should fire him on the spot. That's
Jalen Ward for Kenny Pickett.
Absolutely not. No. I don't know where he's going to play, but I know it won't be here again.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the landing spots for him. You think Kyle Shanahan would be interested?
I was just gonna say, I wonder if he would go, because like, could he run that offense? Probably. I don't think he would do it, as high a level as Brock Purdy would, but we've seen several quarterbacks have some semblance of like, oh, okay, he had a good game there. Like Nate Sudfeld had a couple good games running the offense. Josh Dobbs had a few good games doing it. Obviously, Purdy, Darnold was there and did it fine. So, yeah, I think that's a guy. Or maybe the Rams to, back up Stafford. And I know Jimmy G's there right now. But, any of those types of systems where it's, a very quarterback-friendly system.
Anybody who has a head coach who doesn't want to say on the headset, what the hell were you doing there?
Right.
Like that's basically it, right? There's some like Andy Reid don't give what his quarterback does. Like he just draws up. He's like, all right, man, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And
Andy also has he also has the built-in benefit, obviously, of having Mahomes. And like the month of September, he's just trying shit. He's like, we'll see what this looks like. Why not?
To be fair to Andy Reid, I saw him have that same exact philosophy with like Nick Foles back in the day, right? Like he did the same thing with like Alex Smith, where Alex Smith was unleashed with Andy Reid.
They had that week 1 win over the Patriots on Sunday Night Football in like 2017, where they just beat the piss out of New England, and everybody thought that Alex Smith was like, oh, he's arrived. And like, I mean, he's good, but let's not pretend he's God here.
Yeah, and I think Andy Reid, he came up in Green Bay during Brett Favre, it broke.
Brett,
it broke all of his belief of like, hey man, you're gonna be able to control this. Right? Like,
Donovan was nice for a while.
Yeah, no, Donovan was good, but Donovan was a bit more of a playmaker too. Like he wasn't a runner, but he would get out the pocket,
he can move,
and make some stuff happen for himself, right? And then with Terrell Owens, it was just there's never been an era of Andy Reid football where it's like, oh yeah, this is
speaking of Terrell Owens, are you seeing all this Brandon Ayuk stuff?
No, what's going on with Brandon Ayuk?
I guess he posted a picture on his Instagram story of T.O. working out in his driveway, and he's just saying a bunch of stuff about how he's just being a cryptic wide receiver right now.
You know what? I love it. Make it interesting. Make the offseason interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
That's
and it's the second straight up
great for.
Second straight offseason we're talking about Brandon Ayuk. So good for him.
Look, I think it's been since Odell Beckham. Where we had somebody who would make us talk about him in June, all these other wide receivers.
Stuff got way out of control though. Like we're doing Odell watch when he's going to Baltimore. Like relax, enough.
Odell
of that.
watch. Oh, you didn't look in Cleveland. It was always like constantly, when's he going to get traded?
Oh, yeah, I guess you really had to like actually live it, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we had to live through the worst years of Odell's career.
Is he like officially retired?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. He's just chilling.
At this point, the league retired him. Yeah. Like
nobody's calling.
They saw how he looked in Baltimore.
Here's my bold prediction: he will sign with somebody in like week 7.
Well, no, wasn't he in Miami last year?
He was in Miami, and they did absolutely nothing with him because he's just not good. What were his stats last year? Let's look at what Odell's stats were. I remember when I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah. Let's see. Odell Beckham Jr. stats. Come on. Okay, so 2024 Miami, 9 games, 9 catches, 55 yards.
55 yards?
On 18 targets, yes. So.
Damn.
So there you go.
Whew.
My take.
Comes fast.
I tweeted this like 2 years ago, and it went viral. But my take, and it's not to any fault of his own, but he is the most overrated player in the history of football.
I would say, I don't know if he's the most overrated player in the history of football. I would have to think about who I think is the most.
I would certainly put him there.
He's in that class of like, hey, everybody thinks he's like the best in the NFL because so many people talked about it during his run. Like he was incredible.
Yeah.
In his peak.
If he doesn't make that catch against Dallas, I think he was a very big flash in the pan for the first couple years of his career and then just faded away.
The level of fame that he had, like he had that's I think it's not the play was bad. It was like the level of fame that he had was like at Deion Sanders levels.
It was.
Like,
and that's not me trying to like disregard anything he did in the first 3 years of his career because he was great in those first 3 years, but after that, like, didn't really do a lot.
It did fall off a cliff.
Yeah, I understand injuries played a part in that, but still, like we talked about this guy, like he was Randy Moss and T.O. rolled into one up until like 2 years ago, and it was very annoying.
You know how I feel about Roquan. I think Roquan's one of the most overrated players in recent NFL history.
Well, they're starting to do that with Bobby Wagner.
Oh yeah, it's been happening. Because like they talk about Bobby
that,
like it's still
that lifetime achievement All-Pro last year when Frankie Louvu was definitely better than him. That was a little bit annoying.
There are some positions where it's really easy to be overrated, right? Like I think the positions that you would not expect a lot of media folk to really have a good grasp on what's good or not. They kind of just rely on what people say.
Right.
And here's the thing about what NFL players say sometimes. It can be some bullshit, right?
That's why I hate like the whole top 100 show every year because like like a lot of them are boys with each other and they're gonna hype each other up and it's
they're not watching football on Sunday,
right?
Like they're not, so they're just gonna go off of Joe Batonio's still good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like let's throw him in there, right?
Right.
Or that guy, that's that guy. They go off of name value. Like you ever hear players react? Players still think like Joe Flacco still got it. Like if you listen to them talk about Joe Flacco, and it's not because like they know more than us or anything like that. Even though in some areas that is absolutely true. Mm-hmm. It's just because like, they are victims of falling for the reputation. Like when Aaron Rodgers does show up there in Pittsburgh, he's going to get like, they're going to treat him like he's still Aaron Rodgers, not like he's a dude coming off a bad so-so season, right? They're going to be like, oh my God, Aaron Rodgers, he's a legend. He's an MVP. They're going to talk about him like he's been there forever and like he's still that guy.
I don't know. I feel like Aaron's like the one guy that a lot of people don't do that with just because they don't like him.
But look how Garrett Wilson was acting about him, right? He was out here
that's fair. Yeah.
Like, I'm going to change my sleeves to be just like you. Like, all this stuff.
I hear you there.
Players are going to gravitate to that reputation.
From a player standpoint, yes, I would agree with that, yes.
Fans are over it, right?
Fans and media, like they're, and like rightfully so, like I'm over it too. But at the same time, like I've said it multiple times, I'm in the unpopular camp where I'm like, I like Aaron. He's a little bit quirky and odd, but like whatever.
And if you're a player, you're not thinking like us, where you're like, hey, he's 40. You're thinking, I want to play till I'm 45 too. So
how Patrick Queen was right. Patrick Queen was asked about it last week, and he's like, I grew up watching Aaron Rodgers, so it'd be cool if he came here.
Like the reputation a player carries when they've had success in the league, it just lasts so much longer amongst the player base than it does amongst a fan base, right? Where you might survey Browns fans and have like 30-40% of them be like, yeah, Nick Chubb's not good anymore. Like it just is what it is. If you ask players, like if any team that brings in Nick Chubb, they're gonna be like, yo, that's Nick Chubb, right? Like because that stuff kind of matters to them in a way that it does not matter to most fans.
This is gonna be like the worst analogy ever, but I feel like a lot of players did that when like Tavon Austin was on the Jaguars. And they're like, that's
Tavon Awesome.
Yeah.
It's not Tavon Awesome anymore. It ain't been Tavon Awesome since 2013. But that's how people will react to things, or players will react to things, because that reputation, because like they're not gonna they scout for these games and everything else like that. But more than not, if you are a Aaron Rodgers fan and you play football, well, you play him most of the year, so you're not really watching Packers games if you're not on the Packers. And then what? You might play the Packers once every 4 or 5 years.
Every few years, yeah.
Yeah. And like really, it could be much longer than that, because you could just like, you could beef with the team for 2 years, go to another team for another 3 years, right? And just constantly miss the Packers on your schedule. And it's like, so you're never really preparing for them. So why would you revisit your take on Aaron Rodgers, right? They don't have the time we do to watch these games.
Right.
So that's why I think that reputation lasts, because they're not watching Joe Flacco throw 3 pick sixes.
No, exactly.
They're not paying that. They're not on Twitter tweeting about it. Like they're not online like they're normal folks. So like they're just like, oh yeah, Joe Flacco, he was pretty good. We got Joe Flacco. I guess he's going to be good. Who cares? Brady played till he's 45. Like these takes kind of rock with players, and it's fascinating to see, because I'm like, Aaron Rodgers will absolutely be treated like Aaron Rodgers the day he signs for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, right? There's going to be a lot of dudes who are like excited that he's there and whatnot.
Especially anybody who's dependent on the quarterback.
Oh yeah, like him and DK trained together like a few months ago at UCLA. So there's going to be plenty of guys offensively. Maybe Jonnu Smith, because apparently they're trying to make that happen. I guess that's something that I could have said. Yeah, they're trying to trade for Jonnu Smith. Sure. Art's trying to complete the infinity gauntlet of former Falcons to come to Pittsburgh. Whatever.
I've never seen somebody so dedicated to reuniting a team that was not over 500.
I do think that in large part that is just a play by Drew Rosenhaus to get him more money in Miami. I don't know if the trade really happens, but Donald Parham did tear his Achilles, so we'll see. If they use Jonnu Smith purely as like a slot receiver, I could be talked into it because Pat Freiermuth just got paid last offseason. Darnell Washington's still there, and I like Darnell Washington. So if they wanted to use him purely as a receiver and like some fun formations where it's like wing T in the backfield where he's like on either side of Aaron Rodgers for a play. You try to just do like a little play action touch pass, like goofy shit like that the Dolphins did to get him touches. Whatever, that's fine. He's a guy who was a Pro Bowler last year and he had a great year. We'll see. But I remember what he looked like in Arthur Smith's offense, and it wasn't nearly that good. So we'll see.
Yeah, Arthur Smith is an enigma, man, and he must like blame everything on Desmond Ridder.
He must, which is weird too, because like there were certain analytics where Desmond Ridder like looked really good. I think it was like a lot of the deep passing stuff where whenever they would let him just like uncork it, it was like, okay, Desmond Ridder's not horrible, but like decision making, especially over the middle of the field, was just like, God almighty, bro. Like, was he the one who threw the London pick on the it went viral for like the Toy Story thing?
Yeah, that was Desmond Ridder. That was versus the Jaguars, I believe, too. But here's the thing about any analytics stat that tells you that Desmond Ridder was an exceptional deep field passer.
We gotta just disregard.
Throw that stat out the window.
Yeah.
That tells you right there. All right, well, that stat, I'm gonna take that one with a grain of salt. For now, like there are some stats that matter in college that don't matter in the pros. There's some stats that matter in college that don't matter in college, or it's like EPA. I don't care about it in college. Like I just pass EPA. Do not care about it. It's very easy to manipulate that in college. Where the NFL, a little bit more difficult, right? Like it's
and even then, like EPA loves Jimmy Garoppolo too when he was the 49ers quarterback. And then as soon as he leaves San Francisco, he's a backup for Vegas and now a journeyman guy. So
don't even get me started on Jimmy Garoppolo, man. Like,
fair. Yeah. Like, so I think with almost every analytic, you got to kind of have a caveat there as well. It just depends on which ones you value more.
By the way, Jimmy Garoppolo's a guy you bring in, and your offense might think he's good, but everybody on the defense is like, nah.
People will remember, oh, yeah, he went to a Super Bowl in 2019.
No, I love discovering the NFL secondary, like, cult hot takes that they all hold, right? Because like I love that when Jalen Ramsey was in his prime, he would just tell us everything that DBs are thinking,
right?
Where he's like, nah, that guy's trash. Like we don't think that guy's good.
Although he said that about Josh Allen, and he's never beaten Josh Allen.
Well,
Josh Allen just torches him every time they play.
Here's the thing. At that time, a lot of people did think Josh Allen was overrated, including a lot of safeties. And they found out he wasn't, right? Like and then they were doing stuff to test him. Like back then, they were like, oh, I'm going to play the middle. I'm going to bait him into throwing deep. That doesn't happen anymore. The respect has gotten there.
Yeah. Then he throws a 65-yard bomb to John Brown. They're like, God damn, all right, sorry.
Yeah. You guys tell though, like safeties especially are the ones that have the hot takes on quarterbacks because you could just watch them and you're like, oh yeah, this guy doesn't think that guy's good.
Yeah. I think the purest form of that from like a Steelers perspective was in 2019, the year that Ben got hurt. They were playing the Colts. Jacoby Brissett was in, but then he got hurt. Brian Hoyer comes in and his second or third play, Minka gets a pick six. It's like 96 yards. And they show the all 22 of it. He is standing there, not just watching. He's like, I know exactly where this ball is going to go. Picks it and takes it to the house. He's like, okay, Brian Hoyer, sure. Watch this.
Yeah, one of the biggest warning signs for Deshaun Watson was how safeties were treating him. Especially like towards the end of 2023.
I think you said that during one of the episodes of North Talk during the season.
It was like the teams that had played him a lot, like Baltimore, the in-division teams, right? There were a lot of situations, I think 2 times versus Pittsburgh and Baltimore, where like a player just decided, I'm gonna tip that, right? and it turned into a pick six. And I remember thinking like that could be concerning, right? Because they're not really afraid of him. But Sean won that game, so I was like, maybe there's something there. Then I saw how like the Cowboys were covering him, and I'm like, oh, they don't think he got it. Like they think he's cooked. And then like it got so much worse and worse, and then you're getting to the points where you're putting like 8 in the box. They're not even afraid of him. Like, they're stacking up for Jerome Ford. Like that's how little they're afraid of you. But yeah, it is fascinating when you can discover these things, and if somebody could get like a microphone, the right person gets a microphone to one of these DBs, they will tell you who they think are the overrated quarterbacks.
Oh, bro, we see that at least once or twice a year. Well, like Cam Taylor-Britt was the guy last year, right? Where he sounded off, and he had an incredible interception against the Chiefs. Who was he talking about in that game? Was it Xavier Worthy, maybe?
Probably Xavier Worthy.
Maybe Rashee Rice? I can't remember.
Nah, because Rashee Rice doesn't have a reputation to where he'll prompt anybody to talk about him, right?
I think, yeah, because Xavier Worthy is, the fast guy. So
yeah. They love going up against the fast guy, right? Yeah. Like, let's see what it is. I got a great story. My guy Tyvis Powell, he was a former NFL player, and he went up against Tyreek Hill on special teams in the preseason, and his coaches tell him, "Hey man, give him the cushion. You get this guy's fast. Give him the cushion." And Tyvis is like, "I run 4.4. I played at Ohio State. I won a national championship. Right. I played gun against Alabama. What you mean I gotta give him a cushion? I am the cushion. I've always been one of the fastest guys on every team that I played at, including the national championship team at a perennial powerhouse." So he didn't give him that cushion. And Tyreek Hill ran right by him.
Yeah, that'll.
He was like, "Damn."
Okay, Jesus.
He had to go straight to his special teams coach and explain to him why he did not give him that cushion. But yeah, they want to test the speed. They have hot takes on wide receivers. Like, I want to see the uncut, raw version of like, who are two safeties or two corners, like just two corners that just to tell you everything about what people are feeling?
I feel because, like if we get,
will shock you.
If we could get like Cortland Finnegan to tell all, that would be good. I would be excited about that.
He'd be like, "Yeah, we was more afraid of Jay Cutler than we was Eli Manning because that was the thing that was happening." like,
who was another one that was like a little pissant that was just every receiver? Brent Grimes wasn't he like a little bit annoying to some people?
Yeah, Brent Grimes.
Brent Grimes would get on you. D'Angelo Hall had that thing with DeAndre Hopkins that one year, but I don't think that was like D'Angelo Hall wasn't like
now, if we flip this and go to quarterbacks who think corners are overrated, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. Top of that list.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks used to love that.
I forgot about
Rodgers-Cromartie, big ass. They were like, "Yeah, look at them hips. He can't move them." We throw it right at Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie.
I wouldn't even say they think this guy's overrated, but like Eli Apple is an easy one to be like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna throw at him all day."
No, that's what we need. A podcast is like Ryan Fitzpatrick and Eric Weddle, and they're just talking about who they thought was overrated on both sides of the ball.
I would listen to that.
Here's some crazy takes where it's like, yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick is like, "I always had a good game," versus this corner you thought was pretty good.
Yeah. Like one game I had 4 touchdowns throwing against Antonio Cromartie. I'm like, oh, all right.
Or the other there's nobody who's a bigger hater than the underutilized DB who thinks, if I was just in that system, I would have those numbers too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's funny. Yeah.
Like that Nnamdi Asomugha thing. I bet there were like 15 quarters that were like, "See, I told you he wasn't good."
Put me opposite of Asante Samuel. I bet I'll get a couple picks.
Bro, he got like 100 targets. Of course he had 5 interceptions. I only get like 40. Like these conversations were absolutely happening.
I'm trying to think of like names like that who like Steelers fans would remember. You can like name some Browns ones too that were like 3rd or 4th corners that who was like, I don't know, like Deshae Townsend. I guess he started for a little bit. Bryant McFadden. There we go. That's like a depth Steelers corner who was there forever. There's a bunch of those guys that you can point to as like that fans of that team will remember, but like everybody else would be like, "Who the hell's that?"
Yeah, there's a ton there. It's just fascinating when you look at like how people view. Like you could never get anybody in the NFL to say anything bad about Joe Hayden.
Oh
Like,
no,
back in the
yeah,
day.
Joe Hayden is
Like,
the everybody loves Mount Rushmore, I think, of NFL teams.
Like even when they would talk shit to Joe Hayden, it would be polite. Like a lot of respect to Joe Hayden. Like he must scared some folks back in the day of like because he could jump really high, and I think what people respected was he wasn't very fast, but he was out there for so long.
Yeah, technically very sound.
Mm-hmm. It is. But there's as much tropes about like what the media loves about an individual player and what we kind of fall into versus like what players tend to like overrate as well. Yeah. Right. Like Greg Newsome is probably one of those players for me where I'm like, I think players tend to think he's much better than what he actually is because Greg Newsome's very technical. Right. But what Greg Newsome cannot do is run left to right. Mm-hmm. and all that technical stuff don't matter if you can put your foot in the ground, run across the field, and he ain't got the hips to run with you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it ain't gonna work, right? But players love it. Like, I remember Chad Johnson was, like, tweeting glowingly about him. And I was like, yeah, he was going vertical. He could do that. He can't stand left to right. Like, it's what it is. Wide receivers love going up against him. Like...
Chad Johnson with doing a podcast with, like, Jalen Ramsey I'd watch the hell out of that.
I feel like that might lose the plot very fast, right? That's my fear with it. They're going to talk about anything but football on that podcast, right? I need two football nerds in there, right? That's the thing. That's what make it good. Because Chad Johnson and Jalen Ramsey, they just get people mad on Twitter with their hot takes about 50-50 or some bullshit like that, right? Like it'll turn into bullshit, right? Because that's like kind of what most of those podcasts have turned into. I need like, who are the two biggest? Like Nick Chubb, Joe Patonio, and who's the biggest football nerd on the Steelers?
Oh, that's a good question.
Cam Hayward?
Cam Hayward, Minka's a big guy, like in terms of just like nerd.
All they care about is football.
Yes, yeah. Minka's definitely one of those. I'd probably put Cam in that conversation. Who else? Maybe Peyton Wilson. He's a big football nerd.
Like Andrew Luck.
Oh, dude, I wish Andrew Luck had a podcast.
Yeah, Andrew Luck and Luke Kuechly podcast.
Oh,
or
brother.
Andrew Luck.
Take my money.
Ooh, and Navarro Bowman.
I was going to say either Navarro Bowman, Patrick Willis, like anybody in that era of just really good linebackers.
Just straight up, I've never heard you care about anything other than football.
Yeah, no, that's very good. That's very good. I like that.
I saw you at UFL games, dog.
Jesus. You saw Andrew Luck at a UFL game?
Yeah, well, his dad ran the league for a little bit.
Oh, I forgot that. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so that might have been part of it.
Yeah.
And I bet Andrew was there like, I just want to see what they're running.
I just kind of seeing what the offense looks like out here.
It's very interesting how you have to change these formations when you don't have guys.
I can't do a consistent Andrew Luck. He's a very back of the throat talker, and I can't quite get there. We're gonna go. I can't do it. It turns into John Madden at some point.
Yeah, we did like big personalities are one thing, but like, nah, I need the football nerds because those are the people going to be like, yeah, you know, they won't tell you outright, they won't make it a hot take, but they'll be like, yeah, when we played San Francisco, what we like to do was, and you're like, oh, this is actually disrespectful to never play slot for San Francisco.
Yeah,
like, hold on, this is what you used to do to Richard Sherman. You know, but it is fascinating trying to get into the weeds, figure out what people actually feel and believe, and that brings us all back to the point of where, Browns fans, these players are going to want Joe Flacco to start.
Who the hell said it today? I think it was Kimberly Martin said today that some people within the Browns believe that Shedeur Sanders could definitely start. I don't know if that's
some people in the Browns. I wonder who those people are.
Yeah, I wonder.
The people who probably drafted him, right?
Jimmy Haslam sent a direct message. He's like, hey, put this out.
And this is the last thing we'll say because this video is over an hour long now at this point. But last thing I'll say on that is like, I bet the front office wants Shedeur, because we outlined that earlier in this video where it's like, they benefit from Shedeur Sanders taking the job. I think there's going to be a big difference between what the coaching staff wants at quarterback this year versus the front office, because the front office probably wants to see as much from the guys on rookie contracts as possible. But if you're Kevin, do you want a guy who could play 17 games? So you're probably looking at Kenny Pickett as your best bet for that.
I wonder if like that becomes a thing where like Stefanski's just had enough from everything from the Deshaun situation and now this where he just, I don't want to say leaves, but there's like a mutual parting of ways that takes place and he just tries to go somewhere else.
I think he understands that he's going to have to make a sacrifice there, right? Like, I don't think you go into this season, if you're a reasonable person, thinking like, oh man, I'm going to be able to start a guy for 17 games. Sure. Like, I think he would like to, right? And I think that's part of where this Kenny Pickett hype comes from coming out of Cleveland is Kevin, probably wants Kenny to be the starter. Because Joe is not going to give you 17 games. He hasn't given you 17 games in this decade.
Right.
He hasn't given you 17 games, 2017?
Yeah, the last year before Lamar.
And we weren't even playing 17 games back then.
Yeah, 16 games season.
Yeah, so like a whole statistical era of football ago, like the 16-game era. That's when he played a full season. And it wasn't like a particularly good full season. So
yeah, I mean, it's why they ended up taking Lamar in the first place. Is like, okay, we need something more here.
Yeah, so if you're Kevin, you're probably not looking at Joe as somebody who can give you 17 games. So it's probably Kenny that you're thinking could give you a 17-game season. Coaches hate playing rookie quarterbacks, right? Especially offensive-minded ones. Right. Because if you're Kevin, you like to have control. There's just a lack of control that you're going to have there with the rookie quarterback. So I'd imagine that there's going to be resistance in camp of like, hey, man, can Kenny, like they're begging Kenny Pickett to take the job.
Right.
Like, I think Kevin is begging for Kenny to make a better argument for starting a guy 17 games. Likely he's not going to make that argument any interesting. And
when's the first time that the Steelers and Browns play each other? Hold on, let me get this pulled up.
I think it's early in the season.
I do think the first matchup is early in the season. Yes. Their schedule. Let's see. Come on, get it loaded in here. So they will play each other.
You Broderick Jones. You better hope.
They play each other week 6, and that game is at Pittsburgh. So
after the London game.
Yeah, so the Steelers get a bye after the London game. They have a week 5 bye. I don't love that, but nonetheless, that's what they have.
Yeah. So we'll get Joe Flacco, Aaron Rodgers there. That last game, it could be Mason Rudolph versus who knows.
Yeah, it could be. Could be.
We'll see how. Well, I don't think they're going to bench him. I think it might be injury or something like that. But yeah.
I mean, maybe Kirk Cousins is playing for one of these teams. Who knows?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the difference that they're going to be battling there is like, I think Kevin wants Kenny to make an argument. Yeah. I don't think Kenny's going to make that argument very compelling. And if that's not the case, then he kind of understands that Andrew's going to win that battle, right? Sure. Because Andrew should probably win that battle there, right? Like, unless like you see something incredible from like one of these older quarterbacks, it's like, why not play the two guys that you drafted to see if there's a bridge there that you can also, because the upside is, let's say Shedeur plays well enough to start and he could be a bridge, or the same thing is true of Dylan Gabriel. Well, you might have a top pick with the Jaguars selection. Let's say you luck into Kate Klubnik, looks like Joe Burrow. You got the pick because you have the Jaguars selection. And you take him.
I think regardless of, I don't think Cleveland's going to win more than maybe 6 games regardless. So I think either way, they're going to be in pretty good position to get whatever quarterback they want because they have that additional first-round pick that they can use if they want to move up. So,
and then it's like you have the upside of, hey, if these guys show anything and you still want to do something different at quarterback, you can ship them off with 2 years on a rookie deal and probably get a lot back because they're going to be so cheap at that position.
Yeah, like let's say that, Shedeur plays well and you still want to do something different at quarterback. There will be teams that would give you something for him. So,
like if you get, because the situation here would be Shador play this year, show you something, and he puts like a decent season, let's say like a 25-10 season together, right? 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, or something along those lines with like decent enough efficiency, probably like 20th in success rate.
I mean, if Shador throws 25 touchdowns this year, he ain't going anywhere.
No, not this year. I'm saying next year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but the Browns already drafted somebody in that
Oh,
draft.
okay, I hear you. Okay, I hear you.
Then it's like you're probably going to get a ton back for it.
You'll get a lot back. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I hear you there.
So that's what I'm saying is like they're not going to trade him. They wouldn't trade any of these rookies until after the 2026 offseason, because also that's when Deshaun comes off the books, right?
Yeah.
That's when their window starts to open up, and they probably want as much ammunition as possible,
right?
So they can go out and make some trades for some guys. You know, maybe that's when they finally bring in Brandon Ayuk, spend a block on that one, right? And like they think to themselves, okay, we got our guy, let's go. You know, and it's going to confuse some folks who are like, oh, they just reset the timeline with a rookie quarterback. But they're like, no, we just reset the timeline contract wise. So now we're back at year one of a rookie contract deal with extra assets to throw in. I think like that's Andrew Berry's dream scenario. Like if I'm being honest with you. And I think that's any GM's dream scenario. It's like, oh yeah, let me be able to ship off one of these guys, get some assets back. Hell, if Dylan Gabriel looks like he could be a backup, somebody's going to spend like a third on that. Like to prime off of you.
Yeah, you'll get maybe like a Joe Milton deal where like somebody sends you at least like a solid like day 3 pick.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, it's really, that's why I don't mind spending the extra picks when you don't have a quarterback on quarterback, because it's like, you know, they're lottery tickets, and sometimes you hit the mega lottery, right? And that's the one that people focus on. But, you know, sometimes, you know, you get a scratch off and you win like $2,000. Like, and I think that's the hope with Dylan Gabriel. It's like, it's a scratch off, so higher odds. So, you know, I hope we win like a couple grand from it. And then obviously Shador Sanders is the swing, right? Like, let's see if he can be the guy. But we'll see. It's all going to be interesting. And I'm enjoying the piece right now because I know this training camp's going to be, it's going to be on Rich Eisen's show. They're going to do lives from ESPN. It's going to be pretty annoying. We got 2 joint practices too.
Oh yeah? Who are those with?
Carolina and Philly.
Okay. Steelers have 1 joint practice. They're doing 1 with Tampa.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be something. It's gonna, because they're gonna do a lot of team drills. Right now, they've been protecting Sanders from like these team drills, so they don't do the team drills with Sanders while they have the media available. Because the last time they did, people were charting.
Yes.
So I think Kevin saw that and was like,
no media during these.
No more. No, we're not.
We're not tweeting out OTA passing stats here.
Because I think he saw what I saw. If people are going to use these stats to pump him up in OTAs, dude, he's going to throw like 4 interceptions in a practice.
Right.
And then people are going, oh, he's a bust.
Yeah.
This is why teams didn't draft them, right? Like all the anti-standard stuff comes out. And
I mean, no, like that happened on like day 1 with the Patriots this year too, where Drake May had a few interceptions and everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but some people were like, uh-oh. Like, dude, it's OTAs. They're in shorts. They're installing a new offense. They're going to try some shit in
and
shorts.
Like also
who cares?
the silly thing about stats is like, how often is it that they're just working on stuff and it's not really meant to be a competitive period?
It's exactly, especially when you're doing an install of a brand new offense for a guy. Like, yeah, things are going to happen.
I saw somebody who was like, it was Jerry Jeudy running a route and it was on Martin Emerson. And people were like, oh, Martin got cooked. I'm like, Martin wasn't playing to win that route. They were just trying to work on timing and just let the quarterback see what it's supposed to look like coming out the break. Like, that's all they were doing. But it's like, oh, that's a completion. It is like, oh my God. The football literacy is getting worse. We know more, but less at the same time.
OTAs are the biggest nothing burger of any part of the NFL season. But people are on the field, so you want to talk about something. So like, I get it, but yeah, definitely overanalyzed. For sure.
There's stuff to talk about at OTAs, but it's never what people want to talk about, right? It's like, okay, well, let's see what the tone is. How many team drills are they doing versus last year? Like, are they changing up what their foundation's going to be for this practice, right? Like, that's the interesting stuff. What's not interesting is what actually happens in the drills. Like, it doesn't matter. Right, like I've seen so many guys be OTA camp stars, and then
I mean, Justin Ross is a 3-time all mini camp selection, and he hasn't done anything at the NFL level with the Chiefs. So,
oh yeah, there's like first team All Berea guys. I think that was like a saying Andrew Hawkins used to bring up. He was like, "Oh yeah, he first team All Berea." like there's those guys, right? Not even first team All Latrobe, because you guys don't even do. Like, you didn't even make it all the way to Latrobe.
First team All Southside.
Yeah, so it's just. It is an interesting time in the NFL calendar. We say there's nothing to talk about, but we did spend an hour and 14 minutes.
We did find a way to talk about a lot of stuff.
So, there's always something to talk about when it comes to football. It's an interesting tapestry. But this is Jarrett Bailey. Jarrett, again, for those of you who did not know where to find him at the beginning, where do you find Jarrett Bailey at?
Find Jarrett Bailey, myself, on Twitter at JBaileyNFL. Read all the stuff, sporting news, read all the Steelers coverage at Behind the Steel Curtain. Listen to my podcast, The Pump Fake. And if you're looking for just more Steelers coverage on the podcast side, listen to Believe in Steelers on the Believe Network.
All right, Jarrett, I got a last parting question for you.
Okay.
Are you going to be locked into Saturday night main event? or a card that might have Hangman versus Mox and Okada versus Kenny Omega.
I'm not one of these people who partakes so much in like the tribalism of wrestling. Yeah. I do prefer AEW because I like the wrestling style that they have, but like when WWE's good, I'm happy. It's not good right now, bro. It's so bad. And I'm really just flabbergasted at what they're doing to John Cena on this final run. So no, I'm going to be locked in for AEW tonight because they're doing like basically a free pay-per-view on TV. It's a 4-hour special event. I don't know if I'm going to watch all of it, but I'll be up watching Dynamite tonight. And then when All In comes around, I'm going to be very hopeful that Hangman Page defeats Jon Moxley. And if he doesn't, I think I'm going to have to go down to Jacksonville and find Tony Khan's office and give him a stern talking to.
Biggest heel in the business right now.
Okada Omega 5, though, by the way. Yeah, that's going to rule. I assume that's what they're going to do.
Whatever Will Ospreay is doing will be amazing.
I mean, yeah, Will Ospreay could wrestle you or I and somehow take it to a 3-star match. It'd be great.
Yeah, I remember. I'll talk more about this off air, but y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.